Hello, hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana, and today, a little different than every other Thursday. Today, I have nothing in particular planned other than answering your frequently asked questions and then just opening up the floor so that you can ask me anything that I might not have answered in a previous live, or anything you want to know about the process of me working as a reader, about metaphysics, about my journey as a yogi, whatever you want to talk about tonight. So let's just have a really good chat tonight. Hopefully we'll have a couple of laughs, and I'm just going to say hello. So hello to Cheryl. I'm doing well tonight, and I'm going to tell you a little bit how I am doing in a moment. And George is here. Hello, Georgia. And nice to have you here. Hello, Kyle and Jen and Money Addict. Nice to have you guys here. So I've never done one of these, put myself in the hot seat, and I really don't have anything to hide. I'm not here to answer personal questions about my family or anything like that. I want to kind of keep the topic narrowed to crystals and cards and clairvoyancy and that kind of stuff. So let's kind of go there, and just let me know what you want to know. Inquiring minds are, people want to know stuff about you, and I don't have any secrets, and I love telling my stories, as most of you know who've been listening to me for a while. So welcome. And yeah, so if for any reason I don't see your question, you just put it in caps, and I am on StreamYard, so I will highlight your questions, and I can't see the highlighted, so you don't need to tag my name because it doesn't show up in this particular application. So I thought tonight I would just start with one of the things I notice in the chat. So sometimes, especially when I'm doing readings, I notice things that are going on in the chat. And one thing that people often comment is, how does she do it? It's like I can't. It's almost like I'm not there. People are talking back and forth amongst themselves. Well, how does she know this? How does she know that? Like, how does she do that? And I thought that's just a kind of a really good segue into all kinds of questions. So how does she do it? Well, she meaning me, I've been doing it for a while. And since I was a little girl, I have seen colors, and I have seen unusual shapes and energy. And at different periods of my life, I have been more clairvoyant than at other times. And it's been quite a journey. And I think at sometimes in my life, I have chosen to turn it off, and other times it's just presented itself. And so when I am the most open, and when I am the most receptive, and the most strange things happen, is when I am deep in my practice. So usually there has been a period of silence. So if I have taken, in Sanskrit, it's called mona, the practice of silence. And usually when I'm observing silence, for me, that is a huge, huge shift. So that's when I get the most interesting experiences happen. And mantra, for me, mantra is a segue into all kinds of things. And so I do not have a regular practice of silence right now because I've got quite a busy schedule. But mantra is very much part of my life. And I find that if I have the discipline of practicing mantra on a daily basis, then my frequency shifts. My frequency is different. And so how I do it is I am with the intention daily of raising my frequency and raising my expanding my energy body, and working towards just being in connection, feeling connection. And so another part of that is I notice everything. I can be driving with my kids, for example, and I see everything. I see every shift in nature, every animal, every bug. And I'll often comment to other people in the car, "Oh, did you see that? Did you notice that? Oh, what are you talking about, Mom? Are you crazy?" And things that fly overhead and things that fly by, like I pay attention. I like my peripheral vision is enormous and intense. And sometimes it's not great actually for me when I'm driving, because sometimes I see things that make it difficult to drive. But yeah, so how I do it is by, on a daily basis, shifting my frequency. And I'll tell you a little more about that. I just want to say hi to anybody else that's popped in. Michelle's here. Hello. Hi, Penelope. Thanks for popping in tonight. Hello, Marg. Thanks for coming. So what does that mean to shift your frequency? And like, do you drink coffee? Do you drink alcohol? Those kinds of questions that come up all the time. Do you practice yoga every day? And all of these things affect frequency for sure. Everything you eat, the way that you talk, if there's been an argument. So raising my frequency means starting my day with intention, ending my day with intention. And when I am out for a walk, I have a large dog, as many of you know, Amber. And when I'm out with Amber, I don't wear a headset. I don't listen to music. I go into nature. So I either go for a swim in the ocean or I go for a walk in the forest. And I focus on my breath. I repeat mantra, and I just get really engaged in spirit. And so I do that sometimes multiple times a day. And so I'm able to maintain this kind of zone. And no, I'm not in a liminal space all the time. And yes, I drink coffee. And yes, I drink alcohol. But I don't smoke cigarettes and drink wine when I'm doing readings. And if I'm feeling crappy, I don't do readings. And I would never, ever, like if you had booked a reading and I was feeling hungover, or I had a cold, or I was not feeling myself emotionally, like I was carrying, I felt that I would be projecting a lot of stuff. I don't do readings and I don't do healing work when I'm feeling that way. So I make sure that I am in the best space for you. So, and that goes as well too for teaching physical yoga classes and things. So, and thank you for those of you that are helping to, I know a lot of people, when I put the question mark up, thought I was doing readings tonight, but I'm not doing readings tonight. So yeah. Michelle, I'm just going to read your comment. And I think I might just leave my glasses on tonight, not take them on off. I always watch these lives with a smile on my face. Just makes me so happy. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that question, how does she do it? It amuses me when people are chatting about it in the chat. And I love doing readings. The other thing I think that is important is that I go beyond meanings. Like I'm not, when I lay out a reading, I really see the whole picture. And I usually lay down one card and I have this thing running in the back of my head. The first card is always the most important. The first card is always the most important. How can I tie in any other cards that I've laid down to that first card? But I see the whole picture. the whole spread. The whole spread tells a story. Is there a color? Is there a symbol that is appearing? Is there a symbol that shifts from one to the next to the other? And I tell a lot of story when I'm reading. And for sure, I bring in meanings that I've been trained and I've learned and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it's so much more than that. There's this connection to consciousness. And all this information is out there and accessible to all of us. And if we are a vessel, and if we come into this work with a sense of humility and openness, then things just come through. And I find myself sometimes like, okay, I've never said that before. I don't know where it comes from. Obviously, it comes from spirit, it comes from guides, it comes from God. I don't know where it comes from, but these things just flow through. And I usually run with it, because when unusual stuff starts to flow through, I know that it's not me. And sometimes my voice changes, but not usually. And usually when I'm doing readings, my voice is a little bit lower than normal. I have a fairly low voice, but there's it's a really interesting experience. So that's kind of the how does she do it question. Anyway, so that is FAQ number 1. And it's either how does she know or how does she do it? The second one is, I'd say the second most frequent question is, do you practice yoga every day? And do you practice yoga? There's some variation of that question. And I think that the definition of yoga is, that's where we need to, we start the question. And I may be projecting, but I think when people ask that question, they're asking me if I do like sun salutations every day. Do I do a physical yoga practice every day? I think that's what people mean when they ask that question, but I don't know. I was once in an airport, and I was wearing leather boots, and an older Indian woman, I don't know where she was from in India. This was in Canada. I told her that I was going to an ashram and to take a Kriya yoga course. And she is the first person who ever asked me what yoga meant to me. What was it? Was it the exercises? I think she said. And we had this beautiful conversation, and I felt really, I don't like being in that position where somebody is down, at your feet cleaning your boots, and I'm up in a higher level. It was really uncomfortable. But she asked with such sincerity, and we had this really lovely exchange of conversation. So for me, the practice of yoga is a lot of what I already talked about. So yoga means union. So yoga, so hatha yoga, Hatha, hatha yoga. So ha means sun and ta means moon. It's about balance. It's about bringing the light and the dark together. And the physical practice of yoga, the asana practice, is one way of entering into the experience of yoga, which is union. Asana actually means seat. And so the physical yoga practice is a way of shifting your frequency so that you can be more open and more receptive. And part of that being more open and receptive is being open physically, so you can actually sit and meditate and sit comfortably and meditate. And so I practice bhakti yoga every day. So bhakti yoga is the mantra practice. Bhakti means devotion. And for sure, that's what I do every single day. I practice the physical asana practice probably 4 times a week. And I do pranayama. So I have a breath practice that I do pretty much daily. So pranayama is a super intense practice, and I love doing pranayama. And there's all kinds of different breath practices that I do. I also teach it, not so much as I used to, but it's something that I do. And what else do I do in my yoga practice? Mantra, pranayama. So as far as meditation, now that's a whole other topic. And meditation is part of the yoga practice. There are several levels of meditation. And the actual word meditation in yoga refers to a very high level experience, which I am nowhere near. So it refers to samadhi. And the kind of preliminary practices, I've talked about some on this channel before, are more concentration practices. And so I have dharana practices and dhyan practices, but samadhi is not in my repertoire. So not yet anyway, hopefully in this lifetime. Okay. Hello, Salo. Thanks for being here tonight. So yeah, so you guys go ahead and post your questions if you have something that you would like to ask me. And I've got a few decks on the table too. If you want to ask me any questions about the tarot, or actually reading tarot, or how I read cards, I'm happy to talk about that too. So the third most frequently asked question, what would that be? People ask about decks a lot, and different decks are popular at different times. And I think I mentioned I am preparing a video, maybe a few videos on the work of Kim Krans. And I have just received her Blossoms, is it Blossoms and Bones book? And I watched an interview with her not too long ago, just after she had created that book. And I've also picked up one of her children's books. I feel like I am one of the few people who sees, I don't know, I find in a lot of the Facebook chats, a lot of the Facebook tarot groups, people are very critical of her work. And they say things like, it's simple, I don't get it, things like that. And so that was my motivation for wanting to do a video, or do a couple of videos, or maybe do even a series on her work and how I see her work. I've done lots of videos on chakras and things like that, and I have included some of her decks in those talks. And so that is one deck people ask about all the time. And I really love using her decks. I feel she is so understated. She is not there to tell you how to read. She's one of those creators that maybe doesn't give enough information. And so once you get to a level where you are really kind of comfortable stepping in, being in your own shoes, her decks are maybe more comfortable, put it that way. So it depends. Like if you come in from an artistic point of view and you really connect to the line art, that might be something. So I just want to kind of show you one of the things that I've been contemplating, and I actually sorted the cards. I think they're all mixed up now because I used them for a reading not too long ago. But I don't know if you've ever noticed, like in some of the cards, the background line art is horizontal. So in this card, it's horizontal as well too. And in a lot of the cards, there is this light. So in the Judgment card, there is light, and then the rays are going down away from the light. And same in the Strength card. So there's the sun, and then the rays are going down around the lion. As opposed to this card, where there is no opening in the center of the rays. There's just this black point in the center in the Lover's card. And so one of my, this one has horizontal lines. And this one has the point at the center, right? Much like the Lover's card. And so I've been really kind of doing a thorough analysis of this deck and trying to not figure out what Kim's intention was, but what those things mean to me. And I am so intrigued. I'm so intrigued, and I love to reflect on decks in this way. And sometimes I contact the creator and ask the creator questions. But I think there's so much that can be learned if you take your time with the deck. And I find it frustrating when people say, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I think that all that means is you haven't spent enough time. And maybe it also means that there is something about the deck that is scary for you. There's something about the deck that is, at a subconscious level, is going to take you to a place where you don't want to go. And I think this deck definitely has that potential. So for example, in this Four of Pentacles, the line art is all pointing in to the center. And then we also have this crazy energy that is wrapping around the pentacles in different directions. So yeah, so this is one deck that people ask about all the time, and that's why I'm going to do a video. But it's taking me some time because I just don't know how to approach it, because I want to make it accessible, yet at the same time I want to share my journey of the deck. And I also want to finish her book. So I want to finish reading Blossoms and Bones before I share that. And yeah, and reflect on her interview as well too, because that was an amazing interview, which I can give you the link for later. So, oh, I think there is my first question from IT Guy. Do you practice japa, and curious what mantra, if you can share, that you use? Okay. That is a great question, Joseph. So japa and a japa jap, I have not, so the so-hum practice, I don't know if that's specifically what you're talking about, is I teach it. I don't practice it anymore because I have a large mantra repertoire that I'm always learning a new mantra and working on longer mantras. Sometimes I haven't been to the ashram for ages, but some of them that are chanted at the ashram are so long and so complex. And the young girls who lead the mantra chant so quickly. So part of my mantra practice is just chanting the longer mantras more quickly and getting my mouth wrapped around some of the words. So I do not presently practice a japa jap. And what mantra do I use? So when I was given my name Sadhana by Swami Satsangi, I was given a mantra. So I have a personal mantra that is part of, now, from my understanding, and this might just be my little human perspective. So the mantra that was given to me by Swami Satsangi is connected to my healing, to my journal, to my life path. So the frequency of the mantra that she gave to me during my mantra initiation is to, on a daily basis, help shift my frequency. towards samadhi, towards enlightenment. And that mantra I can't share with you. That mantra is not shared. So that's just between me and my guru. What mantras do I practice on a daily basis? Well, from the Satyananda lineage, we have a daily practice of doing, so it's 11-11-3. So we do the Maha Mrityunjaya mantra, the Om Triambakam mantra 11 times. We do the Gayatri mantra 11 times, and then the 32 names of Durga 3 times. So that is something that I rattle off every day. And then depending on what mantra I am working with, I mean, I love to chant the Hanuman Chalisa. So I have memorized the Hanuman Chalisa, and I sing that with verve and enthusiasm during my walks, among many others. So yeah. So thank you for that question. All right, here's a good question. Is animal medicine part of your practice? And if so, how do you work with this? Well, there's a couple of different layers to that. And one thing, and I have this palm stone. This is a seraphinite palm stone. And as I was coming out here, I picked this up. I don't know. In case you're wondering what I'm doing with my hands, I'm just rubbing my seraphinite palm stone. Okay, so I want to start by sharing with you something that one of my teachers said, and you might have heard this before. And that happened at a retreat where I was not a cat person, and this cat was really bothering me. So every time I went off to do art practice or journal or do a meditation, this cat, one cat in particular, and a couple of them just kept coming around me and climbing on me and walking across my journal and things like that. And it was really bothering me because at that time I didn't like cats. And so I talked about it with my teacher, and she said, Sadhana, love every being that comes to you. Every being has medicine. Every being comes into your presence for a reason. And those words really shifted something for me. And so instead of trying to get my journaling done or whatever I was supposed to be doing, because I was at a retreat and we had all these practices and exercises we were supposed to do when we were sent off by ourselves, I focused on the cat or the bug or the fly, and just kind of had a conversation with the cat, approached the cat, was in the cat's energy, and it really just kind of gave me a gift. It gave me a gift. And kind of, I'll come back. There's so many layers to this, to answer this question. One of my friends who cuts my hair, I was at her home, and she was also aware that I was not a cat person. And after I came back from this retreat, her cat jumped up onto my lap when she was cutting my hair. And it was the first time that the cat had actually jumped up onto my lap. And I was so happy to have the cat on my lap. And the cat was just, when cats are really happy and it sounds like they're an engine. And so that was a really cool experience because that really shifted things for me. So yeah, so that's kind of how my awareness of the potency of animal medicine was ignited during that experience. And so I really pay attention now. I really pay attention. So I live in British Columbia, Canada, lots of wildlife here. And so when wildlife comes into my circle, I stop and I just be. I just be with the animal. And right now it's hummingbirds and bees and different bugs and deer and bears. And I communicate. So I greet the creature, and I'm silent. I'm silent and calm, and I do a lot of exhaling and ask them if they have a message for me, and that's what I do. So, yeah. So thanks for your question. I hope I answered your question. Kind of a long-winded answer. All right. So Salo asks, do you read Oracle and Tarot cards at the same time? At the same time? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. So Salo, I have a series. I have a playlist on my channel called Deck Combinations. And in this series, I talk a lot about choosing Oracle decks and tarot decks that have a similar frequency. And what that means is that when you work with these two decks simultaneously, they kind of have a conversation together. Now, some Oracle decks and some tarot decks don't talk to each other at all. They have nothing to say to each other. You look at them and you go, okay, nothing going on here, because they speak a different language. And so through practicing pairing decks and seeing how they work together, I've learned to read Oracle and Tarot together. And usually what happens for me, so let me just take this Oracle deck here. So I want to give you an example. So maybe you have a tarot reading where there's lots of 9s and 10s in minor cards. And then you pull a card like this, and I know that this reading is more about the wrapping up of something than it is about the specific meaning of the suit or something like that. I remember one time, so this card here, I had never noticed that the wreath was open. It's something I hadn't ever seen before. And this card has the keyword abundance. And so what I do is sometimes the keyword influences me and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes this particular opening, the opening in the wreath, is significant, and there will be openings in the surrounding cards. Like nothing, I'll notice that nothing will be closed and everything will be open. There was a really beautiful reading in one of my recent videos, and I noticed that all of the hands, I can't hang my hands down, but all of the hands were hanging down, and all of the hands were open in exactly the same gesture in the Oracle deck and in the Tarot deck. And so what I do is I look to the symbols and I look for support. I look for supporting information in the Oracle deck and the Tarot deck. So that's what I do. So I recommend you watch some of my videos, and hopefully you can pick up a few tips through that series, which is ongoing, and I will be doing more and more of them because I love it. Where did it all begin? Where did it all begin? Where did it all begin? Well, I think the curiosity with the clairvoyance started when I was a child, but I didn't have anybody to talk to about it with. I think it started with clairvoyancy. So what that meant was seeing colors, seeing orbs, seeing shapes, having a child. So when my third child was, oh gosh, how old was she? 3, 5, 4? I think she was 3 because she was able to talk. When she was 3, she was having experiences at night where she was seeing humans, dead humans, ghosts, beings. And I tried to have conversations with her to see if they were ancestors or if I could identify any of them. So I would ask about clothing and smell and messages and things like that. And I was coaching her on creating boundaries, like if she didn't want them there, what to say when she went to bed, how to deal with it if it woke her up at night, and things like that. So I think the whole Claire stuff is where it all started. I think that's where, because it's been a part of my life, my whole life, and seeing energy. And then what came next? Well, yoga when I was about 17 or 18. So when I remember I was in an airplane pose. I was in an old building at the University of British Columbia, and I was in a yoga class. And so it's a variation of Warrior 3, where your arms are out to the side and you stick one leg back. It's a balancing pose. And I left my body. And my body collapsed on the floor, and I freaked out the instructor. And all of this happened just in a moment. I kind of freaked myself out too. So I suppose it started with yoga in a way. Yeah. So tarot didn't come until tarot came. When was my first tarot thing? Yeah, only about 25 years ago. So I would say about 25 years ago. Yeah. I have so many stories to tell, Jen. So many. Alrighty. I lost where I was. Hello, Apurva. Panchan, good evening. Panchan has a question. Panchan would like to know more about the Divine Muses Oracle. Is there more to that question in regards to how you use it for readings or what messages you get from it? Okay. So Divine Muses is a really interesting oracle deck. I don't have it on my table. It's beautiful. It has lovely cardstock. Do you guys know the deck, Divine Muses? It's like a super upgrade from Wisdom. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I don't want to knock anybody else's deck. So it is, I'll get it for you. I know exactly where it is. 3 steps away. 3 steps away and on top of a pile. I said I wasn't going to do this tonight, but hop up and down, that is. So this is Divine Muses. I bought it on Etsy. The creator is Marie Bento, and it has an amazing guidebook. Marie is one other creator. Ooh, I'm going to add her to my list. I'm going to start a series in September. I'm going to lose the blue light glasses and put on the other ones. Yeah, she's an amazing, amazing writer, Marie Bento. Just writing her name down. So how do I use this deck? I use it to bring such a good question. It's such a high frequency deck. It's definitely going to connect into past life messages. And so how do I see that, I think, is another good question. So how I use, okay, so it's a complicated answer to your question. So past life patterns show up as lessons in the present life. And usually there's one particular theme or a couple of themes that we're working on. And I find a deck like this is really good for that. So if I have a client, and I would never do this in my live readings or anything like that, like this is a big reading, usually face-to-face, at least 45 minutes, where I'm helping a client to uncover what's underneath what really is going on. And this kind of a deck is really good for that. And I would use this in conjunction with a tarot that had a similar energy. So yeah, that's how I use this deck. Yeah. I hope that answers your question. And it's lovely cardstock, and it's tarot size. It's not too big. And there's plenty of cards. I have 2 different videos on this deck. So you might want to go back and look at that, because I might answer some of your questions in those videos. I did it a while back, but that might help as well too. So thanks, Panchen. Oh, thank you, Joseph. I do not have Modern Spellcasters Tarot. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. Mark asked, how did you know you were in the cat's energy, and how do you know you are in a person's energy? Okay. You know, sometimes words just fail, right? It's a feeling. So clairsentience is when you feel things on your skin, your organs, your body temperature changes, you get chills, you know, your hair on your skin stands up, or you get a pain in your body. And so as far as a reading for another human, I know when I'm in their energy, when it's not my pain, when it's not my stuff. So I can, if you've done a reading with me, I often guide the person into relaxation. Not when I'm doing the really quick readings, but I guide you into an opportunity to let go. So send you into relaxation, guide your breath. And a couple of times I've had some really weird things happen. And it's like, I remember this one time my teeth hurt so bad. I felt like I've never had braces, but I felt like you would feel, like I imagine you would feel when you got new braces or when you got your braces tightened. My mouth was in so much pain. And so after I brought the person out of the meditation, I said, this might seem like a really weird thing to ask you, but what is going on with your mouth? And they just laughed. And that kind of thing happens to me all the time. So I listen to what is not mine. And so it's really tricky because if I've hurt myself and I know that I have tension in my, I don't know, my elbow, and my elbow lights up, that it's mine, not theirs. So that's how I know that I'm in somebody else's energy. I get these physical hits in my body all the time. And so I've learned to listen for that. And then I apply what I receive to everything else that I've learned, because I know certain parts of the body are connected to certain issues or certain patterns and things like that. As far as an animal goes, it's very different with an animal. So with an animal or a bird, there is this, I'm just feeling something in my heart right now. There's like this hush. It's like this deep hush of stillness. And it feels like communion. It feels like merging with another soul. Yeah, it's really cool. And I feel like animals are so open, and for the most part, like a lot of pets are so wired. I find it really, like I do Reiki on other people's pets. And if the animal has not been treated well, or if the animal has a crappy diet and is stressed out by the people in their house, it's really hard. It's really hard to connect. It takes time. But for the most part, it's really quite quick, especially if they have come into my presence. So if that animal has come close enough that I notice them, then there's this hush, and that's the best way that I can describe it. So thanks. That was a cool question. Viola, hello. I've paused the chat. I don't know how far back I am. So I will. That was for Jen. Okay, so Hika or Haika, hello, welcome. Is there a recommended combo of standard tarot deck with Oracle? No, there's no standard recommendation. And a lot of people only read Oracle cards. A lot of people only read tarot cards. Not everybody mixes Oracle and tarot mixes them. And I do not shuffle them together. I shuffle the Oracle deck separately, and I shuffle the tarot deck separately. And sometimes I use the Oracle deck. I just feel like I need a lead in. And sometimes people come in, I don't know if you guys have ever done readings, and people come in like this, and they kind of look at you like, okay, prove it. Prove it. Are you a fraud? And so I need an icebreaker. And I don't want to ask them about their low back pain because it's too personal. And so I usually shuffle an Oracle deck, and then I can lead in from there. And Spirit is pretty generous with me as far as random clues and things. And sometimes as far as names go as well too, like I'll usually hear, sometimes I see like the letters in the ether. Spirit's pretty good with me, so I can help break the ice with people who come in like that. Sometimes not. Sometimes I just say, this isn't going to work for me today. Here's your money back, and I will see you another time. And I've done that twice, because it was, I knew I just didn't want to go into the reading. Not because earlier on, I was talking about how I set myself up for the day, not because I hadn't done that, but because the person was they didn't, it's so hard to say this without projecting. Like, I feel when people are like that, they're not going to be open to hear what you have to say. And so the kindest thing you can do is send them away. Yeah. So in answer to your question, there is no prescription. Oh, that's so nice, Kyle. The birds are coming to you. Tamia, hello. Hello, how are you? All right, so I don't have an FAQ on my website, and I find that a lot of the things people ask me, they're such long, like I have such long-winded answers, and so that's why I've never done an FAQ on my website. But I maybe I should start writing that. I feel like it's more like a book. Some of the answers that I have. Please go ahead and write down any more questions. The other thing that I get asked about a lot is the integration of practices. I get asked so much about the shaman, like I do a medicine wheel spread. I get asked about that reading a lot. And I've done a couple videos on the medicine wheel spread. And I get asked a lot about the chakra spread. So and those are the only two spreads that I do really, that I have a set that have fixed positions for the cards. I find them so enlightening. And with everything that's been going on in the world, especially now, there is a lot of sensitivity to cultural appropriation. And when I do a medicine wheel spread, it's not connected to Native American tradition or culture. It's not connected to, and I had my wrist slapped many, many times for some of the things that I've said. There is no such thing as North American culture. There's no such thing as North American Native Indian culture, First Nations culture. There's no such thing as South American culture. Of course there's not. There's no such thing as European culture, because there are so many diverse groups within each of these continents. There is, however, universal teachings among all kinds of nations, all kinds of indigenous groups, all kinds of people from different places over the planet. And I recently mentioned, I believe it's not the Wildwood Tarot Guidebook, it's their other book, their workbook. And it's actually mentioned in a few different more earthy tarot decks. And also the medicine cards, I believe in that book as well too. How there is a similarity. There seems to be some kind of tie-in with stone circles, medicine wheels, wheel of the year. There's something out there, in universal consciousness that has brought certain cultures to create a wheel of the year or a medicine wheel. And those manifestations of those teachings have appeared in that way. And when you look at all of these teachings, these circles, there's always something common. And so what I've tried to do in my spread, and I call it a medicine wheel spread, but it's not that. It's a wheel. It's a wheel spread, and it's not a wheel of the year spread, and it's not a medicine wheel spread. It is a compilation of the energy of the directions, of the elements, and to me, it feels very, I was going to say super conscious. It feels very universal conscious like. And to me, it's not attached to any particular culture. And so when I get my hand slapped for saying things like, I don't know, South American culture, that's not at all what I mean. I mean that some of the lessons that I have learned come through a particular nation from South America. And I've learned similar things from different tribes in South America. I never ever mean to lump people together because, we were, so here's a big joke. We were playing driving games when we were coming back from the gathering after my mother had passed, after the celebration of life for her. And because we had long drive across the prairie provinces. And so I said, because we had just said, who can name in alphabetical order the 50 US states the fastest? Well, it's pretty hard for us Canadians. We always forget, I don't know, a few of them, especially those ones in the northeast corner. There's so many little ones up there. So I said, well, how many of the African countries can you name? And it was embarrassing. But we say things like, we refer to Africa all the time, African people. You can't do that. There's so many cultures there. There's so many cultures and languages and nations and people, and even within countries, tribes and indigenous cultures and cultures that have been influenced by European nations. And so why am I going off on this? I'm going off on this because I really love to tap into the ether during these spreads. So I tap into the ether to bring in the teaching that's appropriate for the client at that time. And I think if I prepare my vessel, and my vessel is open enough, that a teaching will come through that resonates with the person on the other side of the table or the other side of the camera. So I get asked a lot about my so-called medicine wheel spread and my so-called chakra spread. And nobody has ever really slapped my hand for my yogic teachings. I am not from India. I did not grow up with a Hindu practice. And the swamis that I work with, they teach us that yoga is not a religion. There are some similar teachings from the pantheon of deities in India, and they transcend the organized religion. So the teachings transcend the dogma. And yes, I go to Hindu temples, and yes, when I'm in India, and yes, I'm aware of some of the differences between the actual religious practices and the yogic practices. And when I'm teaching chakra medicine, I'm teaching it from universal consciousness. I'm not teaching it from a Hindu perspective. So, but I'm also aware because I have a lot of Indian clients from India, and I've never been called out. There's just this really beautiful connection. And yeah, so, but I'm happy to discuss this with anybody who feels strongly that I shouldn't be doing these kind of things. It's all out there. It's all out there in the ether for all of us to work with, I believe. Hello, Positive Tales. So Positive Tales, I'm not doing readings tonight. I'm just answering questions about my work as a reader and different things in that regard. Okay. It's a really important point, Kyle, for sure. Yeah. Honor and deep respect for the people, for the nation, for the culture. It's important. So I'm going to end with, and this is kind of a tricky question. You know, like sometimes people say, I don't see myself in the deck. I don't see myself in the deck. This is another really common discussion. People ask about this all the time. And it's a really hard one to answer. I don't know why I'm pulling out the Goddess Knowledge cards, because that doesn't really apply. So, for example, in the Rider-Waite-Smith, Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork, everybody's white. Everybody's fairly European looking, and body shape and size is very similar. And that deck was used for years and years. In the Thoth deck, let's go back to the Tarot de Marseille. And the Tarot de Marseille, actually, I think the Tarot de Marseille, when people ask that, I think it's good if we can get people to go to the Tarot de Marseille or something like that. And what do I want to say? What I want to say here, if you don't see yourself in a deck, I feel that you're taking tarot too literally. That within the tarot is a tool to tap into something greater. And the messages will come through regardless of the body shape, regardless of the gender orientation, regardless of the skin color. However, I understand that we want to see, it's easier if it's familiar. And so if you have the luxury, if you have the ability to have a variety of decks that include several different ethnicities, gender orientations, decks that feel more representative, and you're able to choose a deck based on the question or the person that you're working with, I think that's beautiful. That's beautiful. But I think it would be, I've told you my story about being in the subway in Tokyo, it was late at night, and because the subway wasn't busy, there was nobody standing up, so I could see across the way, and I was looking at all the people sitting in the bench on the other side, and I was really confused because as I was staring at their faces, I was seeing other faces, like white faces, European faces. There I go again, European. Like I was seeing faces that didn't look Japanese, but they were Japanese. And I was seeing people from my family, people I didn't recognize. I was seeing people from other cultures. And I started to see it was getting really hard for me to know who was Japanese and who was not Japanese. I'd been there a long time. I'd been there over 3 years, but I was starting to notice the difference between the physical characteristics of people who were from northern Japan as opposed to Western or Eastern Japan. There's certain characteristics, doesn't always fit, but yeah, so I think, and there's a lot of really beautiful, wise people out there who are adamant there is no, how does the phrase go? Like there's no culture. There is no skin color. The skin color is an illusion. And so, but I am a white woman and I have very little experience with being in horrific situations where that is an issue. So I don't really have it's not my right to talk about that. So I have purchased recently several different decks that represent other cultures. And one of them was the Marigold Tarot, which I shared with you. Yesterday, I received in the mail the Afro Tarot. And one of the things I'm going to do as I begin to go through this deck is to see if I can recognize the soul, and to look into the soul of each of the faces of the cards, perhaps to find a historical figure or a point of reference. And I'm not sure. It's kind of like the question that was asked with the Divine Muses Tarot. How do you work with it? I work with it at a very energetic level. So I'm really, really curious how this deck is going to vibrate for me. I mean, this is such a beautiful card. Look at this. I'm definitely on a journey with all of this, and one of the questions that I want to ask, and this is from the deepest place in my heart, is if you are a person of color and I am shuffling and reading a deck that is created by a person of color and has exclusively people of color, do you feel that I shouldn't be using that deck or I shouldn't be reading with that deck? Is there anything to that? And I honestly want to work toward transcending all of that, to work towards transcending in yoga, sometimes we joke about it as the meat suit, transcending the meat suit, whether that has to do with the size of the body or the color of the skin and so forth. But this is very, this is kind of a different conversation for another time. Yeah. So I'm just going to see if there's anything else that's come up, and I will sign off shortly. I can communicate with pets. So do you feel I have any gifts or just my intuition? Of course you have gifts. We all have gifts. We all have gifts. So it's a matter of, and so people ask, well, what is intuition? Is there a difference between intuition and claircognizance and intuition? And I think it's just a matter of becoming more open and more practiced and allowing yourself to trust. Trust, right? It's a pretty big word. So we all have gifts, and I believe all of us can do this work. So, yeah. So thank you all for being here tonight. And if there are other burning questions and you didn't ask, I would appreciate it if you write them in the comments below, and I'll try to get to it, or maybe create a video around it. I'm always looking for new ideas for videos. And yeah, so have a lovely evening. Stay well, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye, everybody.